Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. I am Philip Melissa. This episode, we are discussing a matter very important, especially to road users in this country, and that is the automated express penalty system that was introduced and went into implementation a couple of weeks ago by the government of Uganda, and there was a lot of uproar in terms of the many challenges that come with it, the regulations it creates in terms of limiting speeds and how much people have to pay for whichever violations they make on the road. And certainly we're here today to make understanding of that particular system, but also see why actually many people came out to oppose this particular system, and certainly draw recommendations and conclusions on what can be improved, what government must put into consideration, but also how the peoples of Uganda can adapt to this new development in the country so that there is an improvement in this sector. Now, joining me in that conversation is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country, Uganda, who are very well versed with this particular concept, and certainly they will lead us into a very informative and candid conversation to help us understand and indeed draw recommendations, opinions, and ideas that will improve the implementation of this system, because anyway, it is here and it shall be here to stay. My name is Philip Melissa, and I'm privileged to be joined by, among others, Ivan Bowe. Ivan is a lawyer and certainly so very present in many issues in the management of this country. He's been commentating on a series of issues and certainly has been very candid on this specific one, and including writing out a couple of literature in terms of trying to advise, but also helping people understand what is actually at play. Ivan, greetings. You welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I also have Sam Bambaza. Sam is the Executive Director at Safe Transport Survivors and Support Uganda. Sam, greetings. You're welcome to the conversation. Thank you. You're welcome. And we do have Nancy Caroline Ayot. Nancy is a feminist lawyer, but also someone concerned so much about matters of road safety in the country. Nancy, greetings. You're welcome to the conversation. And last but not least, I have Nyombi Sidini Senyonjo. He is a road safety advocate and works with Meng Transport Engineering. Sydney, greetings. You welcome to the conversation. Yes, you're welcome. And colleagues, the EPS, or what is being referred to as the express penalty system, an automated system that is meant to manage the affairs on Ugandan roads. And before we even get into what happened effective its implementation just a couple of days back, I want us to first understand this particular concept and system and what it is and where it came from and why we are even having to discuss it today. And I'll start with you, Ivan. The EPS, what is this? Why do we even have it in the country? Help us understand what it is, where it comes from, and certainly why government of Uganda thought it important to have such a system introduced and implemented on Ugandan roads. Yes, Council Boy.
Thank you so much. The EPS is called the express penalty system. In very many countries, it operates regarding traffic rules and enforcement, whereby when you violate traffic rules, you give an penalty through proper channels, and you pay without necessarily having to go to contest it. You know, so if you feel it was given to you in a proper way, you go ahead and pay the fine charged. But all these have to emanate from the law. Now, over the time, our Roads Act was 1998, and it has been amended the Traffic and Road Safety Act was enacted in 1998, and it has undergone various amendments, but also the coming into force of the Roads Act that amended certain sections in the Traffic and Road Safety Act. However, this system of express penalties is what we call the chipapula, ordinarily, whereby a police officer stops you, you do not have a permit, your permit is expired, you've been, the gun shows that you've been past the speed limit of a particular location, and then they give you that popular chipapula. So that was it, and that's how it operated. And after some time, they made a number of amendments to take care of the surcharge, because they realized people were not paying up the penalties. So we have moved from 2004 with this system to the current system, whereby the regulations were made by the minister to include use of traffic cameras. Because before, you would have a policeman with a speed gun, with what we call a speed gun. And if, say, you're coming from Nakasongola to Kampala, and they say you see a signpost and the speed limit is 70, and you are in 85, then the traffic officer would stop you and issue that penalty, that chipapula. And you are given 28 days in which to pay, short of which it would attract a surcharge. But also the issue of the surcharge came in later on. But initially, there was no requirement of a surcharge. But the deeper issue with the regulations and the current conundrum we find ourselves in is that all laws, even the regulations, must conform to the Mother Act. That's the Traffic and Road Safety Act. So, and whatsoever the minister decides, the minister must do that within the laws and the powers. And the regulations must state exactly where he gets that power, and he cannot go out of that power. So if he's to operate from Mars, he cannot go to Jupiter, because it's called delegated legislation in that sense. So in this sense, the Act shows the maximum fines that can be given. The Act, the Road Safety and the Traffic and Road Safety Act, tells us how much, the maximum you can ever bill a person on any traffic fine. It clearly says 30 currency points. It also says in under which circumstances. So, but now we have an issue that with this company that came, global security company, the Russian enterprise, that started working with doing permits and all that. So ideally, as the president said, that it was supposed to be concerned with security. But now we have police cameras that they are using, and literally the company is supposed to get proceeds of the fines we pay from the documents we have. And that marriage of the security aspects of it, and enforcing traffic regulations is what has brought the mess we are in today. That this EPS system, as is now, has little to do with road safety. By the way, we all desire organized roads, well-paved roads, organized traffic, flow, but also we are against exploitation of the public. So in this, because of the desire to make money, the other regulations, like for example, the traffic and road safety prescription of speed limits regulations, those are recently 2015. So because at the end of the day, for you to be charged of a traffic offense, there has to be a violation, and the violation has to be created. And the violation has to be created either by the act or by the regulations. In issues to do with speed, the law gives powers to the minister to make regulations to determine on speed and all that. But even when that is the case.
All right, thank you so much, Council, and we pick more of that as we continue with the conversation. But thank you for laying for us a ground for what this actually is, but also where it emanates from, including the powers of the minister to put to practice delegated responsibility, and indeed telling us that it must conform with the mother act, that is the Traffic and Road Safety Act. Sam Bambaza, look, by virtue of the position you hold and indeed the work you do on a daily, you are close to the road and you are close to road users. First, I want to pick your thoughts on this particular system, but also looking into how it was being implemented. I understand now why it is under suspension for a whole 30 days, but certainly as someone who is interested in road safety, what is your reception of this particular system on Ugandan roads? And certainly, do you think it is one of the solutions we've always wanted to make sure there is order on Ugandan roads and indeed we secure the lives of Ugandans? Yes, Mr. Bambaza.
Thank you very much, Philip, and thank you much, Ivan Council. Good to meet you, and Carlo, Nase. I'm Sam Bambaza, Executive Director for Safe Transport and Survivor Support Uganda, as well as the Secretary General for Road Safety Coalition Uganda, Rusako. We are a coalition of more than 40 NGOs advocating for road safety in the country. EPS, or the Express Penalty System, is not a new thing. It was started way back around 2019, and it is a digital traffic enforcement tool that was introduced by police to regulate and streamline the management of minor traffic offenses. Minor traffic offenses such as overspeeding, reckless driving, not use of seatbelt, driving under influence of driving with handheld phone. In other countries now they have reviewed that law to handheld device. Even if you are driving while holding a cup, you will be penalized like in Canada. So instead of issuing manual tickets, the traffic officers are supposed to use electronic handheld device to record offenses and issue fines on spot. So this system allows instant tracking of traffic offenses, real-time payment through the bank's mobile money, and then it is also integrated with Uganda Revenue Authority. This system was to ensure that once it is automated, it can be available 24/7, because we don't have the manpower, enough police to be on the road throughout the day and night. So world over, they use what they call speed radars to ensure that people comply with the speed limits along the roads. So what are the benefits of this, this EPS? One, it has a number of benefits. Then I will show you what the challenges that it is facing now, and how best can we improve on this system? One, it is very effective in enforcement because it speeds up the process of issuing, tracking, and paying penalties. You see, Philip and listeners, the role of the government is to ensure that it keeps its citizens or its people on the road safe, and at the same time collect revenue to improve on road safety management. Government does not have space to imprison Philip who is overspeeding. It's better get money from you and then continue. That's how the government generates money. And also, motorists should know that driving is a conditional privilege. Someone can reject you. That's why now we have what we call a driver license. Driver license, the government grants you authority to use the road, but you are licensed. That's why you pay every year, 5 years, 3 years. So it's a conditional. However, the right to human life is a fundamental right. The lawyers are aware. So some of these interventions that government is putting in place to ensure that it keeps its citizens safe on the road and at the same time collect the revenue. When we look at our statistics, the number of the biggest percentage of casualties or victims are pedestrians. The pedestrians are the ones that have been suffered in this, and these are killed by few motorists. The Uganda does not exceed even 1.5 million vehicles. But for the last year, we have lost 5,144. 25,000 were left with serious injuries. And these are most of our youth, our children, and these are left orphans, widows, they have dependents. So now what can government do to ensure that it reduces these crashes? So I've talked to the revenue generation is also a benefit of the EPS, improving road discipline. Improving road discipline means that more cautious in areas of active enforcement. It reduces also on variable cases. When you use a manual system, the motorist or the driver have opportunity to negotiate with the offender. So now when there is a camera, you don't negotiate with the camera. So it has benefit of real-time offense tracking. Police can verify whether the driver has outstanding penalties. That's why in most cases these days, they stop you with the phone and check your number plate whether it has any penalty. Offenders can be flagged and held accountable immediately. So this system, that's why it was set to ensure that there is ensuring that they improve on revenue collection, improve on enforcement.
So Sam, if I hear you well, and I want you to answer this in your capacity as ED of Safe Transport Survivors, do you think that this kind of system is one that will make sure what you called crashes in one of the conversations are reduced or even eliminated on Ugandan roads?
Yes. One.
Thank you so much.
Wait, let me explain to you.
Okay.
Recently, we have reviewed a number of regulations. One, we have a regulation of demerit points. The demerit points, this is where, Philip, as a driver, you're supposed to be given points. You are supposed to be given 16 points, and any traffic violation on offense, they deduct. Maybe, let's say, overspeeding is very dangerous offense. So maybe they deduct 5 points. Or let's assume they deduct like 6 points, depending on the nature of the offense. Then you have maybe do not use a seat belt, they deduct. Once you have exhausted those points, then you are required to go and be retrained, and then your license is supposed to be canceled. However, this has not been implemented because it would require the court to determine the case. But now that there is, if this system is integrated with camera, it will show you the video at which the speed you are driving. Maybe if the speed limit along that stretch was 50 and you are now in 100, it will show an evidence of the speed. I mean, the evidence of the speed through the video. It will show the photo of the person who was driving. That is enough evidence for if the system is now linked with your driving license to deduct those points. Now, once you have accumulated those points, now this is where government is supposed to collect the data and say you have been, your license has been cancelled. These are a number of drivers that need to be retrained. These are a number of drivers that need to be taken into further training. You know, we have a challenge in Uganda. Most of people who get licenses get through the third parties. They have been getting license through third parties. You do the paperwork, there is no training, you just get the license, you're on the road. I want to ask you, and even those who are listening us, if you have ever seen someone who recently acquired a license has put learner a mark on their vehicles. You are supposed to, if you have recently got a license to drive a vehicle, you are supposed to mark your vehicle and put arrow both in front and behind to show that this is a new driver. But people get license, they immediately start transporting people on the road. So these are issues that the system, once it corrects the data, can improve on the decision making, and then we come up with affordable interventions. I will discuss on the challenges on how best it can be improved. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for that quite detailed overview into the system and certainly telling us how important it is and in improving the safety on Ugandan roads. Nancy, look, I want to hear from you. You see, Ugandans struggle so much to work and be able to purchase their cars and get on the road. And what I want you to speak to, look, when I was listening to the president just 1 or 2 days ago at read the budget speech, but also previously in the State of the Nation, he said they want to propagate the economy to rush from around $61 billion to about $500 million. And when you introduce a system that is asking Ugandans to be quite slow with what they do, and in this case on the roads, are we trying to say that we're going to make this economy grow exponentially to $500 billion, but at a rather slower pace in terms of doing things like movement? And when you talk movement, it's not just people moving from the beach to home and to the club. It is people who are doing business. It is people who are transporting exports and imports and so many things. Is this something that plays well in the wider administration of government and indeed the intentions of making sure the country grows? Yes, Caroline, what's your thought?
Thank you so much for inviting me to the show. Good morning, fellow citizens and everyone who is watching. Thank you so much, Philip, for asking me the governance question, because we've been having this discussion and we had, and I think it compounds a lot of things. It compounds the legal question, the economy, but also what is really important is the governance question. Now, when we talked about the budget, honestly, I believe that is a very unrealistic, very unrealistic expectation from this nation. Not that we are incapable, but the point is that at the state in which we are, a lot of things are not the way it is reflected in those papers. You get me? You hear what I'm saying? A lot of issues that they look good on paper, but it doesn't reflect what is on ground. And for me, that is my personal bone to pick, even with this EPS system. The EPS system, when you think about the general idea, it's a great idea. Automatically fining people for traffic offenses, great. But the thing is, we have great policies in this nation. One of the issues that we've had with these policies is the implementation issue around those policies. Number one implementation issue for me, in the real world right now, you know, we we're in sync with the globe in embracing AI and its advantages, right? You know, automatically finding people, sending it straight. And you see from the response of people, you see that it is effective because the measures come in swift and they want to collect as soon as possible. If not, the search increases. But we need to understand where the weaknesses are. For example, why could we not find a local or a Ugandan to handle our AI issues? Do you know the security risks that are involved with something like that? With a person collecting information of road users in Uganda's capital daily with AI cameras, and it's a company of another nation too. The overall revenue question was the company is taking 80% of the revenue and not much of it comes back. And I know from the budget that they said around how much? I think 100 billion or more that they are backing the entire reason why they brought such a system. Because I do not think that it was by accident that people were charged that much. The average Ugandans earn between 200,000 to 2.5 million, and one person can be fined 2.5 million in a day. Since they've removed that system. However, we need to also be very, when bad policies come towards elections, His Excellency the President quickly says, oh, let's remove this policy. It's bad policy. It is not pro people. But then immediately after the elections, the policy comes back in force. And for me, that is my biggest concern, because it is clear that this policy, which could have been a good one, was not properly revised. It was not properly implemented. And a lot of people are going to suffer from this. But also, when you think about it, give me 1 second. The regulatory framework for me is very concerning. Because because a lot of people have been talking about how even the fines that came to them were not real. They were not driving these vehicles. So I don't think the system was tweaked for what it was meant to actually address, for actually getting the real traffic offenders.
If I get you right, are you trying to say that the system was implemented prematurely? There were certain things that needed to be corrected before it was set out into the public?
I do not think it was just, okay, it was clearly implemented prematurely, but also it speaks to an overall lack of duty, lack of care. Because how is such a system which goes through several checks enrolled in such a way? It does not make sense that that system was enrolled in such a way for such a company. And there are so many concerns around this, because they say even the company that enrolled the system is literally bankrupt. So we're asking ourselves, what's going on? Did they not have the funds to actually take care of this? For me, I am in a way, because not only are people going to be, not only is such a system going to affect people unfairly if it's rolled out without the proper measures, but also the fact is we need the road users. The economy needs road users. Imagine if people park their cars at home, it means that fuel stations are out of business. And how many jobs are lost on that? It's not just slow traffic that we are talking about. Imagine if people parked their cars and started using border borders. In our country, one of our issues is the border issue for our road safety. We are concerned about border borders. We are concerned about the menace that is in the roads. But before the government also rolls out such a system, what is the state of our roads? Our roads, for me, I do not even think it's a problem of money or the resource allocation to road safety, because we have some of the most expensive roads to build. They take the longest time to be built, and then they erode as quickly as I don't know, they erode quicker than they are built. That's what I should say. The roads are in, and we are talking about finding people swiftly, but also the AI that does not read the speed on the certain roads. Does it mean that we are finding everyone who is driving at more than 35 kilometers per hour, even on a highway? Does that make sense? No, it does not. So
Thank you.
for me, I think it's a problem of incompetency, but also it reflects the overall governance issues in this nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. And I see you have a lot of questions about this particular system and entirely how government goes around the implementation and institutionalization of particular policies as they get on to manage the society of Uganda. Sydney, I want to hear from you. First of all, I know you are very passionate about the road, and what's your comment to begin with about the speed limits that were introduced in this system, 30 in high settlement areas, then 50 on highways, and all the other speed limits. I saw 100 on expressways. Are these progressive speed limits? But two, when you listen to the fines, 200,000, 600,000, you have cases where people are charged as high as 2 million, for example, if you found driving while holding your mobile phone, 2 million. Are these really suitable fines for a road user in a country like Uganda, especially knowing the size of the economy and indeed how much people earn ordinarily in this country? Yes, Sydney.
Thanks, Philip. Yes, the new speed limits which were adopted have been the current trend worldwide, as recommended by the World Health Organization, that 30 kilometers per hour in case of an urban area with a lot of pedestrians and cyclists, 50 kilometers per hour in urban roads with dual carriageway, and still with quite a number of pedestrians and cyclists, then 80 kilometers per hour on other national roads and 100 kilometers per hour on the expressway. Yes, while much of the public sees 30 kilometers per hour as so slow, they have not yet got the information that our bodies haven't yet evolved or adapted to withstand the impact in case of a crash. Because, for example, a pedestrian, if knocked at 30 kilometers per hour, the percentage that they'll undergo a serious injury and have to be in the hospital for longer than a week is 40%, and the percentage possibility that they'll die on the spot is 20%. On increasing to 50%, what may seem a little increase, especially when you are driving, actually to the body, there is much worse injury incurred to the extent at 50 kilometers per hour, the possibility of undergoing a serious injury and you have to be in hospital for more than a week is 100%, and the possibility of dying is 80%. Yet for the middle speed there of 40%, possibility of a serious injury is 80%, while for dying is 40%, meaning the first increase from 30 to 40 elevates very much the chance of undergoing a serious injury, while for 40 to 50 elevates the chance for undergoing a fatality. So while much of the public doesn't know all this, that's why they see 30 kilometers per hour is very slow, yet in zones with a lot of pedestrians who can randomly cross the road, plus school zones, hospitals, such would be the appropriate speed limit. By much of the rumors that the public got that 30 for all roads in the country, which isn't the case. Yes, there are not so many speed signs. Then most once they are vandalized by generally the city councils, and the government expects that one knows it in their mind. Once they have seen there's a school poster that right away they will go to 30, then other roads in the city to 50, when on the highway 80, except when the road sign has been shown. But in case the road signs have been placed, that will help even for those who haven't yet been informed fully. Then on the second point of the fines, yes, a lot of the amount which was stated would coincide with the fines which take place in the America in the dollar rate, but given the earnings of most citizens haven't yet can't sustain such amounts, one had argued out that even if the fines were the range of 20 to 50, like for the speed limits, still many will feel the pinch and have to adjust accordingly. And one had also given the example for the case of the speed limits that in South Africa, it's in the range of runs 200 to 300, which equates to 40,000 to 60,000, around that amount. So hence, when one receives too many tickets, then just the first ticket, they'll feel the pinch and have to adjust. But the bigger rate and amounts which were put not be sustainable based on the earnings of most of the citizens. And good way to increase in case one doesn't pay on time would have been for the first month the original amount, then after for next month to 90 days an increase by 25%, then for the other 3 quarters of the year to compound at 25% and maybe reach to the extent of confiscating in case one reached big amount, say above 3 million, but when the rates are lower, like speed limit at 60,000 and 30,000, but in case one has reached such a high rate, 3 million, then they are doing a lot of offenses and would require to be withheld from driving on the Ugandan road.
Sydney, if
Yeah.
you allow me, when I hear you so well, you seem to actually suggest that, in fact, even the 30 could be high in particular scenarios, it should be made lower. Is that what you would go for if you certainly were in charge of making sure there is actual safety on the roads that like you would want to see it?
Could be to that amount for one charge when one has been caught on the camera once, but in case multiple times that was speeded like in 10 zones, that then the 30 would reach to 300,000 there. Can be just since one has been driving at the high speed and causing the risk at multiple points. But for being caught once, an amount like 30,000, case they are 5 to 30 kilometers per hour above the limit, and 60,000 in case above 30 kilometers more to the limit would be a reasonable amount.
Thank you, Sydney, for that. And if I come to Council here, Nancy, you seem to have a quick comment to make, kindly in 30 seconds.
Thank you so much, Philip, for giving me the opportunity. I actually resonate with some of the recommendations Sydney made on payments, especially on not paying all the fees at once and doing it in sequences and penalties coming in phases. However, I am not being dismissive of his opinions, really. I am not dismissing, but what I'm trying to say is that we cannot, it's not possible for us at this rate to enforce best city zones, because schools are everywhere. Schools are on highways, schools are in the middle of the city, schools are dropped somewhere. Just schools are everywhere, and it is not possible for us to enforce a law based on planned cities in our unplanned city. I don't know if you understand. But also the overall, equating our economies to dollars. I have this problem with economies. I'm a liberal arts person, so a lot of a lot of my perspectives are from that end. I have this problem with economies and the numbers that they put out there. Those numbers are not representative of people's realities, because Sudiru's income is also the nation's entire income, and yet Sudiru is a person who owns almost 28 times what he owns the income of like 50 million Ugandans by himself. So for me, some of these things are not realistic, and I feel like we need more cautious skills for inventing our policies. We cannot invent our policies based on that. Hell, the World Health Organization says that at least 15%
Thank you, Caroline, for that.
Of charges should. Okay, let me just make this one small point. It's the World Health Organization also says that 15% of health budgets should go to funding women's healthcare, but it's not like that, because it's realistically not possible in our economy. So I want us to juxtapose things that actually, reflects the reality on ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for that. And yes, I can see some you have a comment, but let me first hear from Council here, and I'm going to come to you. And Council, one of the comments that have come in is the issue of drivers getting on the road. And yes, there are speed limits, but one, government has not communicated the location of these cameras and the entire system, where to find them, how they are installed. But two, you've had complaints of people saying, I am on a road, it is marked 50, but I was driving at 45 and I have a receipt on my email. First of all, how does this come about? But two, is there a way this can be challenged legally? Because in the end, we want to see that people are paying fines, but there must be justice in the enforcement of this particular policy.
One, I will go straight to the last question, is that the policy itself is vague on how you contest those tickets. And for everything in all the legal, in the entire legal world, fair hearing or the right to be heard is fundamental. For example, you find a person who says, I drive a Mercedes-Benz, but you put a Toyota Hisense and you billed me. You give me a ticket. That has never been my car. That's not my car. That's not my number plate. That's not everything. But also, it goes in detail to show you how unprepared we are as a country to implement some of the things. Because in certain countries that are sober, they don't license the vehicle. They license the person. In short, if I have 3 cars, in certain countries, I can remove the number plate of one of my cars because the license plate is on the person, not the vehicle. The vehicles do not commit any crime, actually. It's the drivers that commit the crime. So you cannot penalize, in sober systems, you cannot penalize the country. You penalize the driver. But in this system, they seem to be that criminal liability is on the car. Well, I don't get their reasoning, but that's the way it is. 2, we cannot be third world and want to implement things that are set by the first world. First, you have to, kumanya size hiyo, like you have to know your state of affairs. We are looking at a country with a governance crisis. A country where you cannot today tell whether it was planned that a school is in a particular location. Literally, a person tomorrow can get his house constructed for residential purposes, and they make it a kindergarten. or a nursery school. So we have a disorganized country, both with physical planning, traffic governance, and literally everything. We have a leadership crisis, a governance crisis. And therefore, some of these interventions, even when they would be proper, they cannot be enforced. The other thing is, you have people concerned about people being killed on it's very bad. But we have government officials every day violating traffic rules, pushing riders off the streets. We have very many circumstances where the traffic lights say go, that's a red, and the traffic officer is stopping you not to go because someone big is passing by, you know, or someone with a siren is passing by. We have a country whereby, and the people of road safety, we have roads in Kampala here funded by development partners that have uncovered culverts, manholes. When it rains, people die, you know? And to me, we have roads in Kampala here where potholes are a normal thing. So what happens? A person is driving, hits a pothole, a cyclist, let's say, hits a pothole, they're carrying someone, the person is on ground. What happens? They rim into a car. You know, we have roads that are supposed to be dual carriage, but they are single carriage. The plans do not translate to what is on ground. You know, and therefore, when in countries where these speed limits are done, they will tell you that speed limit is 60. Yeah, there is a camera ahead to monitor that. You know, roads communicate. We have very many roads here in Kampala. Go to Old Chira Road. Yeah. No markings, no nothing. So you have a pavement in the middle of the road that is not marked. You have roads that have been constructed and are not properly marked. They're not properly marked, they're not properly lit. So at the end of the day, a person hits, do you know around Radio Simba there?
Yes, yes.
Radio Simba and the flats. Very many accidents, literally every day, happen because drivers hit that Camido pavement. And road safety, why aren't they marking them? Is that, so we have to go back to the basics of us having an organized road infrastructure. We have barricades. You remember the accident that happened sometime back around Acacia. Talk about the loss of the late Rajiv. All other factors notwithstanding. We have barricades that are not marked. It took public pressure for them to mark on such a high traffic expressway, for them to mark that construction is ongoing. You know? Just
so maybe, and Ivan, you see, you say all these things, but why do they happen? Because in any case, when you have a licensed company undertaking construction of a road, they certainly know that they must mark there is construction, please just let your speed be at this because there is men servicemen ahead and many of those. Why don't we see them? Is it the incompetence of the contractor? Is it the people that give out the contract? Is it, what happens?
You know, every contractor must be supervised. Philip, what I'm trying to tell you today is that we have a governance crisis. We have a person who sits in a government vehicle that do not even know the price of fuel, that violate traffic rules so that they get to their offices in their time without regard to any other road users. We have a governance crisis, and then they come forward to impose traffic, impose rules and regulations without one consulting stakeholders. They give us a vague law, but also there is no research to back it up. You know, it is another thing to say people die on these roads, but have you sat in a car on 30% and you're driving through Yusufule Road? Have you? Have you? What informs? We understand the issues that those are the international standards, but those in those international countries and roads where these specifications come from, they have proper drainage, well-marked roads, well-planned cities and townships. Yeah, highways are highways, exits are clear, entrances are clear, one-ways are one-ways, two-ways are two-ways. Everything is marked to inform the road user of what it is. So in the absence of the basic, the logical things and common sense into enforcement of our traffic rules, we are wasting time. We are wasting time and we are exploiting Ugandans for no good reason. A road should communicate.
Thank you, Ivan, for that. And it's quite detailed. Sam, I know you had comments to make earlier, but I want you to speak about the communication on the roads. And certainly when you hear what Ivan tells us here, it is a reality on many of the roads in the country. Road signage, sometimes the style of construction, the pavements he talked about in the middle of roads, and they are common on almost all roads. You look at how they put it, and it doesn't have a clear end and a clear beginning and a clear size. The sizes keep varying within the road, and you look at the sides of the road in terms of where sometimes you have a dual carriage and midway before end of a particular lane, it becomes one. And what is the actual impact of these misconstructions on the roads, and certainly speaking into safety? How much do they affect the safety of road users in this country? Yes, Sam.
Thank you very much. I entirely agree with Councillor Ivan and Councillor Nancy. The issue of what he has mentioned, Ivan, it is true. It is true in the sense that when it comes to implementation of this road design does not meet those standards and specifications. And that takes us to the issue of governance, what Caroline has mentioned. Of course, governance goes with corruption. So you may find they have designed a road that is supposed to have 4 lanes. But when it comes to real construction, they eat 1 lane and they construct 3 lanes. So where are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do as a public? One, we supposed to demand. There is what we are supposed to have. All these government-funded projects are supposed to have transparency and disclosure of these projects. Disclosure in the sense that if you are constructing a road, let's say a road from Kampala on Yusufule, the KCC is supposed to disclose how much is the cost of this road, how many lanes, who is the contractor, how long is it going to take. We have seen roads being constructed almost 15 years. The Northern Bypass is almost 20 years. So the issue of governance and corruption and non-disclosure of these projects. So the lawyers need to come on board and ensure that the access to information, this access to information, people can access to information. You're implementing a project on behalf of Ugandans. Can we have access to information? He's talking of the Russian company. Have they demanded access to information? So that's where the lawyers are supposed to do. I'm a social worker. So a social worker, I'm to ensure that there is ensuring that the communities I serve, the challenges they face are resolved. It is true. Let me also contribute on the issue of the speed, the zoning. The speed zoning is that if there is any school, there are supposed to be some signage to show that there is a school ahead, 100 meters before the school gate. Then once you have finished the school, maybe the school may have an extension of a school playground. There's supposed to be another signage which shows that this is the end of school zone and it's supposed to have the 30 kilometers. Once you have finished the school zone, then you cruise to the normal speed. That is the myth, that it is not necessary that all roads must be 30 kilometers. And when you look at the gradual implementation of the zoning on the highway, you are supposed to see a signage of 80, you reduce to 50, then before you reach a school, you reduce to 30. Then after you have finished the school, then you continue the normal speed. The challenge is on implementation. We are supposed to ensure that once we have these regulations, the new projects, we first subject them to pre-trials. Pre-trials in the sense that you do a pilot. How does it work? What are the errors? What are the challenges? Then later on, you can scale up to another level. That's what happened to this automated. Automated was supposed to be first subjected to trial. For example, when you look at the fashion industry, before when they make a dress, they first subject it to modeling, then this is how it looks like, then it goes back to corrections, do this, then they can go in mass production. But you cannot go and sit in your room, design a dress, then the next day you say, now, this is mass production. Public will reject it. So what we're supposed to do, the challenge is on implementation, is that we don't do trials. You are supposed to first try, test. Even you see, even when you are a DJ in a wedding, you first test the microphone, the music, the sound before the party. So now what we're supposed to do with the implementation is that we are supposed to first do the trials, tests, remove errors, then learn some lessons, get feedback from the communities, the users, and then we roll out a free error system. That's what we are supposed to do.
If you allow me, and you see, this is not new in our country here. A lot of projects are put out there in a rush way, and certainly they realize they will not work, and some of them are abandoned and others keep. But for the benefit of this one, because when they say it is suspended for 1 month and the minister says they are going to make a few changes here and there, do you see government, and certainly in your organization, have you perhaps written to government in trying to advise on what specifics can be improved in the policy to make sure it best serves the road users you defend as a social worker and your organization?
Yes, first of all, what I don't agree with is the exorbitant costs. To be honest, I own a vehicle. Even these government staff also own vehicles. I don't support exorbitant charges. And I think in the regional, it was around like 20,000, 40,000. And I don't think these 200, the 600 was gazetted. I don't think the council can help us whether if those costs were gazetted. Because those charges, once we make regulations, the regulation gazettes is gazetted. So it becomes a tool. So I don't think the 2 million, the 200, the 600, the then 72 hours, I don't think it was gazetted. However, what we need to do is that we are mixing two things. The express penalty scheme is very good. It needs to be reviewed. One, first be tested on a smaller scale for almost like 6 months. Rwanda did it. Rwanda did, when it was doing these trials, it did it almost for like a year. They would get a speeding driver and then make the, if you are like supposed to drive from Kampala to Masaka for 2 hours, and for the driver wanted almost to use like almost 1 hour to reach Masaka because he was flying. They make you wait for that hour plus your passengers in a bus or in a taxi. You wait on the road for an hour. You feel that pain. Then after, once they have discharged that person, the passengers will disseminate information of what they have felt. The driver will inform other drivers on what is on the road. So what is supposed to be done, one, is that you test the system, you remove the errors, you ensure that the charges or costs are affordable, as long as within the economy of the country. You educate the public, then you ensure that the infrastructure communicates, like Ivan have said. You are supposed to communicate with the road. If the road says there is a hump ahead, you reduce. There is a speed, that you reduce. Then also, the system must be transparent, accountable, and fair. Fair in the sense that you don't selectively select citizens, few individuals' vehicles. If it is government vehicle, it should capture them. If it is security vehicles, they should comply. If this is emergency vehicles, they need to comply, but not selectively pick people. And also we have some issues of number of vehicles with the numberless. They pluck off the number plates. And those ones, how do you handle them? We have those who cover their number plates with wedding, Philip's wedding gen, and you cover the number plate. How will the camera capture that system? So we make sure the system is fair, then it is accountable and transparent. That's when people can believe in you. You don't implement a law selectively. We have a challenge in the motor third party where government vehicles don't pay motor third party and us pay. So when there is an incident, in case a government has caused an accident, you are supposed to sue Attorney General. How many people can afford to hire the cost of IVAD for legal representation or litigation? Ugandans are very poor. And that is a challenge, and that's why the system, as long as the system is not fair, transparent, and accountable, that people knows that the fines we are paying is going to help Ugandans, then people will resist. So it must meet those criteria, and then it can be brought back. Then we try it. The advice I'm giving is that let the system be tried, and then government can get community buy-in. If the people can get buy-in, well and good, it's a good system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam, for that. And I want to listen to you, Nancy. Nancy and Sydney, help me on this, because we have a lot of challenges on Ugandan roads, and one of them is non-compliance to regulations by road users, both pedestrians, drivers, cyclists, and one of the most errant groups is the border industry. And I want to hear from you. How can this misconduct on Ugandan roads be tamed other than these hefty fines? Because even the fines, some people comfortably violate the law and go on to pay the fines. How can the Ugandan population broadly be inspired to make sure they comply with regulation and indeed we see order on Ugandan roads? I'll start with you, Nancy. What should be done?
Yes, thank you so much for the question. For me, mine, it's simple. It's pretty simple. Give people other alternatives. Infrastructure improvement in terms of transport doesn't mean that we have to rely on road transport alone. First, our roads are very narrow. They could expand them. It's a thing that could happen. Expanding roads is a better way of regulating a lot of traffic nuisances. But secondly, we could have expanded in 40 years. We could have expanded our railway network greatly to give people alternatives other than using their vehicles to go to work. in big cities, this is the norm. And if planned carefully, this is something that we could have going on. If there are alternatives, if the infrastructure is well developed, there will be no need for such nuisances or better control. For me, it is all about the governance issue. If they handle it very well, if policies are carefully implemented, infrastructure is developed like it should be, then I believe everything will be better controlled. Now, we cannot say that we control everyone. I don't know the better improved accidents will stop, bad motorcycle riders will be more careful. We know that these are people cannot be fault up to that extent, but I know that it can be greatly minimized. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Caroline. And Sydney, how do we really create order on Ugandan roads? There is a lot of disorganization. If you go down on a road today, there is a border crossing through the traffic lights. There is a taxi operator creating another line. There is a government official driving on the pavement to make sure they go through the traffic. How can government and indeed the citizens make sure this kind of misconduct is managed and stopped on Ugandan roads? Yes, Sydney.
Thanks, Philip. First step would be for all regulations to be impacted fairly, because if one will still see a government vehicle not respecting the traffic lights, then like from when they are young, they will still learn it and possibly not change their mindset then when they have grown. Then a second step, especially given the young population of the country, would be to incorporate such road safety in education right from primary education, the secondary education, so that they can know the proper road rules, at least with the new curriculum coming up. If such can also be incorporated at that stage, to be of a benefit. But still, even after all such is implemented, still proper regulation and fines, proper system should be put in place so that still one knows the consequence in case they do not follow the road regulations. But not to dwell a lot. For example, these speed cameras, just as they have worked in other countries, in Uganda, main things which would let a driver to slow down their speed would be presence of other cars on the road. What one has seen, they would go psychologically to start reducing as they reach nearer. Also, presence of motorcycles once one has reached the area, as they know often motorcycles just come right away in the space as you are driving, often gives you the urgency to reduce, plus speed humps and presence of traffic officers. But at a time when all those are absent, like at night beyond 10 p.m., if you've been on the road in such hours, you'll notice that the speed of vehicles is much higher. Hence, still such means of speed cameras would then play a crucial role in such hours. And
Yes.
while a lot of such problems are also found in other African countries, but one which was a good example, how it was able to deal with such with our neighbors of Rwanda, still where you find the motorcycles, most have one passenger, or the rider passengers have the helmet, proper utilization of traffic signals. A lot would be copied from them. Actually, when one visits there, I would wonder if really they are Africans. But the fact they were able to transform, at least would pick a leaf from them. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Sydney, for that. And Council, I come to you. I know our time is very much fast spent. We have very few minutes to be out of here, but I want to pick from you. You see, when you look at this system and the charges that are being picked from drivers and so on, 80% of that money is going to joint stock company limited, global securities company. And what is the rationale behind this particular sharing of resources, having 80% go to this company and 20% coming to the government of Uganda? Because, and I've had people question severally that the roads are built by government money, the cameras are bought by government money, the staff in police and Ministry of Works and indeed all the other agencies are paid by government. But when we get to collecting money, it is actually a private company that is sharing much of the profit. How does this come about? And I can see Council, I think, has experienced a connection challenge, but as he comes back, perhaps Sam, you could I see some has also, oh, is it a general problem? I see people are getting connection challenges, but I don't know. Nancy, are you able to briefly speak to that in about a minute? Why is money going to a private entity, not government?
My my deliberations are going to be speculative, mostly because we do not know what went on. But I do know that private companies.
Yes, maybe you should speak
when
to us. Would it be fair to have a private company take much of the money from Ugandans? And mind you, this is a foreign company, yet the investment was done by the people of Uganda.
Admittedly, it's not fair. That's why we're discussing it in the first place. It doesn't make sense. And we understand that companies get into contracts with government. It's allowed. If there is mediation, even altered, tailored towards that. However, I believe that the 80% was an exaggeration, because this is something that governments are meant to, they enter into contracts on behalf of the citizens of this country. So for them to get most of their the products of such contracts go back to another institution is very bad. But that is just not the problem. The worst thing is that the company seems shady. You understand? They say it's bankrupt, and also there is very vague communication around the contract with that company, because the Minister of Internal Affairs and the Minister of Transport, they don't seem to understand what happened to that contract. And then the Attorney General came out to say that, you know, he made the contract on behalf of the government of Uganda. So how did that happen without the ministry? There's a lot of questions around this that cannot be answered, but also there is a need for accountability, for us to demand more accountability, because even if we were collecting fines of 50,000, all reasonable amounts of monies from the people of Uganda, we need to know that this money is getting back into our country, is coming back into improving our infrastructure, into extending services, to growing the government of Uganda. The fact that the money is being exported to another country is a big question mark, is a big problem for many people, not just for Ugandans. But when you think about it also in terms of geopolitics, it's a Russian company, and our allies are going to be, and many allies of Uganda, especially those from the European Union, are going to be questioning what's this with the Russian company, because the Russian company is not just extending a service to our roads, it's also collecting information in terms of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of brewing issues. And for me, I am gravely concerned about the AI issue, because information in this age is power, and a lot can be got from that information that is collected by another company. I don't know what safeguards they have around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. And Sam, glad you are back. One of the proposals to solve the transport question in the country has been that the government should look into developing and indeed reinstating inland air transport systems, introduce street trains, and indeed broadly long distance trains in the country, and certainly looking at putting that in place to make sure there is an option for the huge traffics that transit on the roads in the buses and within Kampala. Do you think those air transport and trains could be a greater option than the matatus and the buses that keep roaming on the roads? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. You see, the challenge why people are making a lot of noise, even on the 30 kilometers, is because of disorganized public transport. Legally, the motorcycle boda is not supposed to be a public service vehicle, the PSV, but it was put there to generate income. World over, I think in the world over, we know they no longer have these 14-seaters means of transport. When you look at the Magufuli terminal, it's bigger than even Entebbe Airport. So the best way to do is to ensure that Kampala City has a mass public transport where we can use buses. And then you also explore other modes of transport, because why should I go to Munyonyo via Chibuye when I'm coming from Entebbe Airport? You can imagine someone from Entebbe Airport going to Munyonyo, if has to pass Chibuye in the city center. That is a traffic jam, when actually I should have taken a boat. I'm coming from Mukono and I have to pass, I'm going to Munyonyo. I have to pass Kampala, Chereka. That is a traffic jam. So we have to explore all those modes. We had the Uganda Railway, when you look at it, and even very cheaper. I don't see the reason why I should be burning fuel to go in the city center with a vehicle, one person borrowing 50,000. Now we have fuel gasolers, others borrow even 200 on the route, when I would have spent just 4,000 using a train. And if there was a train, rail services, I would be staying in Tungam and work in Kampala. I know that 2 hours, 1 hour, rapid speed, I would be in Kampala, work and go. People would be staying in Fort Portal, Mitiana. That's why even we don't have, the accommodation is not enough. And that's why now what we also, the government need to look is that has to borrow a leaf from Tanzania. Tanzania has shifted the capital city from Dar es Salaam, and Dar es Salaam is going to remain as a business city, and transferred it to Dodoma. Nigeria transferred from Lagos. It was a chaos like the way you see Kampala to Abuja. So we are likely to see that the city shifts. Why should we have all the ministries in the city center? There is poor planning to the extent that even the Kampala City Council, which was the owner, does not have even a land for expansion. Kampala City Council should have remained with a big chunk of land like the Makerere University, like Chambogo University, but you can imagine there is no parking at city center. So the problem, even when it comes on our transportation system, is our land tenure system. Our land tenure system allows Ugandans to own land, unlike other countries where land is for the government. So if you are planning, and in terms of compensation, there are guys who already are planning that there is extension of the land, they go and buy those lands, plots. By the time government comes, they increase the prices of those plots. So that's why we have the challenge of implementing the transport system, of implementing these policies like school zones. We have talked that you have a house, the next day you change it into a school, a primary school. Then now it becomes a zone. So it's a challenge, especially in implementing the national physical guideline. There is a national physical guideline which was launched 2011. It has never been disseminated. I realized it when we were working on a guide for establishing safe school zones. And it guides on the construction. It guides that even when you are constructing a school, we are not supposed to have children on a 4th floor, but you have seen even schools with children at 5th floor, but people are not implementing all those. So the best way, one, is to rethink and ensure that the 14-seater are removed in the city center. Then we can also have what we call park and drive. Park and drive is that you discourage people to park in the city center, but you allow buses to bring people. If I'm from Mukono, I can park my vehicle in Chireka, take the bus, and it brings me in town. I do my work, and then take another bus, go back to Chireka, pick my vehicle, and go back. I don't need to bring the vehicle in the city center. If I'm from
All right.
if I'm from this side of Budo, I can leave my vehicle in Natete or Busega. I get a bus that allows me inside the city center and goes back. I don't need to bring the vehicle in town. So we need to rethink on how we can have mass rapid transport, how we can explore other modes of transport, water, those posts like we are during Christmas, will people really afford a ticket? They will not be able to afford a ticket and will not have, and you know how Ugandans travel. We go with chicken, matoke, yeah? So I think that is the way to go to ensure that.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam Bambaza. Thank you so much for your thoughts and for your time. Mr. Sam is from the Road Safety Coalition Uganda, but also the Executive Director at Safe Transport and Survivors Support Uganda. Thank you so much for your time and for your thoughts. Nancy Caroline Ayot, she is a feminist lawyer and a governance passionate individual. Thank you so much, Caroline, for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation. Sydney Nyombi, thank you so much for your time and for making time for the conversation. Sydney is a road safety advocate and he works with Meng Transportation Engineering. We appreciate your time and indeed your thoughts. And I think Council has dropped off, but we also had Council Ivan Bowe. I thank you so much, all of you, for making time to the conversation, giving us the information, and indeed drawing the recommendations you've drawn, which I think should be picked one or two here and there to improve the transport sector in this country. Special thanks to our viewers who always keep it Civic Space TV and indeed Community Voices Uganda. Special thanks to the Center for Constitutional Governance. Special thanks to all our other partners and indeed the technical team. Job very, very well done. And certainly we look forward to having more and more of these conversations to put a brick to the growth and progressive development of our country. I am Philip Mlisa, and let me say good evening and may you have freedom always.